What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Landry Hat podcast. I am your host, Zach, and we're back after a huge win over the Washington Commanders. The Cowboys beat Washington 44-22. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, make sure you add this to your library so you don't miss a single episode. We do pregame, postgame, all the time throughout the season, so make sure you add it to your library. If you're watching here on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a single episode. And what a game, especially after last week's loss to the Carolina Panthers. It felt like one of the more demoralizing losses that the Cowboys have faced in the past couple of years. Like, outside of that Green Bay game, obviously in the playoffs, a different situation. Going into Carolina last week, it felt like Dallas had to get a win. That would have put them back at 500 or over 500, and they just couldn't get it done. Doesn't help that you got ran over by Rico Dowdle, who people seem to think the Cowboys, chose Javonte Williams over him. There was a whole back and forth, blah, blah, blah. Rico said he was going to punch you in the mouth, and he did. For Dallas to leave Charlotte without a win was demoralizing. And so from here on out, really, starting with the Commanders game, every single week is going to be a must win. You have a chance at the NFC East. You're not far back from the Philadelphia Eagles, who got a win over the Vikings. That's probably who you're going to be chasing. The Commanders have been fighting some injuries on both sides of the ball. Their defense isn't very good, and the Cowboys' defense hasn't been very good throughout this year. So let's get into breaking down this game, and we're going to do it like we typically do here on the Landry Hat podcast. We're going to start with the offensive side of the ball, then we're going to work our way to the defense. But you guys won't believe this, but it's not going to sound much like the past couple of podcasts where we've been talking about this defense, to where we can say all these great things about the offense, and then it's just ranting about the defense once we get there. I actually have some really good things to say. I have a couple of guys that I would like to apologize to, and I'm excited to get into this episode. It's always more fun to talk Cowboys. I'm sure for you guys listen to Cowboys videos and stuff when the Cowboys win. So let's get into this breakdown on the Landry Hat. First off, Dak Prescott continues his MVP campaign. How he is not in the top 3, top 4, top 5 even in the MVP race is crazy to me. Dak has been phenomenal over the past couple of weeks. 13 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's taking care of the ball, but he's making big-time plays. And it's not like he's throwing for 160, 170 yards. He's out there going 21 for 30 in this game, 264 yards, 8.8 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no picks, took 1 sack for 7 yards, had an 88 QBR. Remember, the QBR is out of 100, and then a passer rating of 130.4. That is out of 153. He was phenomenal. Once again, he has total control over the offense, pre-snap and post-snap. Ceedee Lamb was back for this game. We talked about it a little bit last week, about how he fits into the Cowboys offense, especially with George Pickens being the guy over the past couple of weeks. Ceedee coming back from a high ankle sprain, which isn't an easy injury to get over by any stretch. What did he do? 5 catches, 110 yards, all of those coming in the first half. The second half of the game kind of felt like, okay, it's over. It was 41-15 at one point. Jaden Daniels gets hurt. The Cowboys are just pulling away. You're not facilitating the offense like you would if it was 41-41 or if it was 20-20. It's a completely different ball game. So when the Cowboys needed it, before they pulled away, Ceedee 5 for 110, averaged 22 yards per catch, had a touchdown, had the long catch of 74 yards on 8 targets. And it felt a little not forced to Ceedee throughout this game, but it's going to take some time for them to kind of balance what they want to do with Lamb and Pickens, because Pickens has been the guy. The offense has run through him. Okay, you get Lamb back. Well, Lamb is used to being that guy. If you don't have a number 1 wide receiver, which Pickens is, if you don't have 2 number 1s, obviously Lamb steps back in, and he's that guy. So how are they going to start balancing these out is going to be interesting, and I thought they did a good job in this game. Pickens was stretching the field vertically. Lamb was doing a lot of the things that he does underneath, outside of that 74-yard catch. oddly enough, I don't know if Dak talked about it in his post game, but Pickens and Lamb were really close to each other on those routes, and Lamb had his hand up. I know Dak saw him just a tad bit late, but they were kind of in the same general area. Ended up working out. Lamb scores the big touchdown. Pickens was 4 for 82, averaged 20.5 yards per catch. Both of your receivers averaging over 20 yards per reception. Pickens had the deep ball for 44 yards and caught 4 of his 6 targets. I mean, this offense, it's Super Bowl caliber. It really is. They put up 44 points or 37 points with the pick 6, and if the game wasn't out of control, I think the offense could have kept scoring. Like, at one point, I was asking my friends, like, are they going to score 60? Could they possibly score 60? And you do that, and you put up 37 and pretty much don't play at all in the fourth quarter, not really, just trying to get out of the game healthy, run the clock down, and it felt like Dallas had some room for improvement in between that. You played 3 quarters of football, you scored 37 points offensively, and then the second quarter was a real lull where they couldn't get a whole lot going. It just felt kind of misjointed, and they weren't as smooth, and the operation wasn't as successful as we've seen in the past. But to pretty much play 3 quarters of football and have that lull, you still scored 37 points. I feel like we're spoiled. And for me to come on here, if it was any other year, I'd be like, oh, they scored 44, they scored 37. I would have nothing to say about the offense. But because they are so talented, I can look at you guys and say, they scored 37. Okay, well, there's still room for improvement. That's how good they are. And then you look at the run game. And yesterday, during the game, maybe it was because it kind of got out of control. We haven't seen a Cowboys blowout like that in quite a while. The last one that I can think of is the Browns game week 1 of 2024. And then you got to go all the way back to 2023 to get into one of these games where it felt like Dallas just had complete control. Once you get to the third quarter, like it's a close game, get to the fourth quarter, and then Dallas just pulls away, and it's not really even a game at all. But maybe the run game just kind of slipped my mind because the passing game was so dominant. Javonte Williams carried the ball 19 times for 116 yards. He averaged 6.1 yards per carry, had a touchdown, and the long run of 33. The Cowboys are finally starting to get their offensive line back in the game in check. You got left tackle Tyler Guyton, he's back. Tyler Smith is back at left guard. I've kind of been not disappointed with Tyler Smith, but he's had some holding penalties this year. I don't think he's been as good as years past. He struggled here and there, but good having him back. Like, I would rather have Tyler Smith at left guard than TJ Bass or a backup offensive lineman. Like, that's easy to say. I'm just kind of nitpicking. Once again, the offense is so dominant, you kind of have to at this point. Jaden Blue got a couple carries, 7 for 29, 4.1 yards per attempt. And I'm not going to talk about it in this video because we're talking about the Commanders game, how dominant Dallas was. But maybe this coming week with Foots, and I think we're going to have another special guest on the podcast this week. But I'm going to talk about what the Cowboys could possibly do at running back if they don't make a move before then. I don't know. I think this offense could use another runner, give Javonte Williams more breaks than we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Like, he's been the workhorse, especially without Miles Sanders. Brian Schottenheimer said something about, oh yeah, like we like Phil Maffa, but we've looked at other guys. We like other stuff as well. So it'll be interesting to see if they make a move there. And we're going to talk about that on the next Landry Hat podcast. So if you guys want to hear that, make sure you're subscribed and it's added to your library wherever you get these podcasts. Now, I know teams are wondering, how do you slow this team down? And honestly, for any defense out there, I couldn't tell you. They run the ball extremely well. The Cowboys, I mean, you get 6.1 yards per carry. Once again, that was kind of like at the end of the game, we're just giving it to Javonte. We're burning clock here. We need to get out of this game healthy. And he had 6.1 yards per carry. Like, that's insane. And it felt like a very nonchalant day. The receivers that you have on the outside with Ceedee Lamb and George Pickens, I don't know how you stop this offense. And that is why I say they are Super Bowl caliber. They've scored less than 20 points just one time, and that was in the Chicago game, which that game still haunts me because that Chicago team is just not good. I hate to say that because they beat you, but they're just not good enough to beat the Cowboys 31-14. You look back on that, but they've scored less than 20 points just one time. And they've scored 37 or more 4 times this year. That's a playoff contender. That is an offense that will get you to the Super Bowl, get you into the dance, and then you have a chance to win some games because you're so high-powered. I believe I talked about it last week too. Like, the blueprint for this team is getting a lead and blowout. Like, that's kind of how it is. If the defense can get a couple of stops here and there, Dallas goes up 7, the defense gets a 3 and out. That actually happened in this game. The offense couldn't take advantage of it, but it ended up happening later on. Offense scores, defense gets a 3 and out, or they get a stop. All right, offense gets the ball back. Maybe they score 3, maybe they score another touchdown. Next thing you know, it's 14-0 or 14-3. And then the game starts getting away from these teams because they're starting to get out to a lead, and it starts making the other team one-dimensional. They have to get into these obvious drop-back situations, playing catch-up, and it's just not going to happen with such a high-caliber offense. And the Cowboys' defense played much, much better in this game, mainly because the offense was playing really well, and they kind of playing with the lead at the end of it, and then you start seeing some guys show up. Like, once Donovan Ezraku and Jadeveon Clowney and those guys can pin their ears back and rush the passer, obviously, they have a chance to get after the quarterback, make him uncomfortable, and then Marcus Mariota throws the interception. We've been waiting for this defense to catch up, right? Just get a few stops. Get a few, and you'll win a ton of games. And like I said, this is the blueprint. This team needs to just get a handful of stops. We're not asking for the defense to be top 10, top 15 even. Just be league average. Don't give up 35 points per game. Don't at least make the other team punt 2 or 3 times in the second half, which they did a good job of yesterday. But I'll continue to say this. Every game that Dallas has a decent one on defense, it's going to look like this. I truly, truly believe that. And with the Panthers game, with the Packers game, with the Giants game, when they're off, they're off, and it's going to look just like that, where you got to score 40 points to win. And even scoring 40 against the Packers, it doesn't always work. So let's move on to talking about the defensive side of the ball, because that's probably the one that most of you are focused on. The offense, it's every single week we're like, wow, they're good. Like, that's the extent of my analysis. Brian Schottenheimer, Clayton Adams, the run scheme stuff that they do, how they get guys out in space, how they get pullers out in space, get guys blocking down, traps on the inside, all of that, along with the passing game and how they truly marry that together is incredible. And then you have, obviously, the players to do it with Lamb and Pickens and Dak, and your quarterback's playing at an MVP level. Said this last night on a live stream on my channel. You guys, myself included, we need to appreciate Dak. He has been unbelievable. He's given you a chance every single week. I know the Bears game is kind of a stain on what we think about this season, but outside of that one game, the offense, they've been phenomenal. So we're just waiting on the defense to kind of catch up, right? Don't be top 15. Don't be top 10. We're not expecting much. Can we move from 32 to like 28, and then you might have a chance to win even more games? So I have a couple of notes about the defense, and then we're going to get into talking about a guy that I'm going to apologize to this week. I am not apologizing for the past couple of weeks and taking back what I said about the defense having no hope. I know someone said that in the comments section. Oh, you said there's no hope for this defense. Okay, they played well this week. I want to see that for the next 2 or 3 weeks. I want to see that at the back half of the season, because based on what they've put on film so far, it feels like even without the Commanders having their top 3 wide receivers, that they were going to be able to move the ball. Lucky enough, they did it. Dallas did a fantastic, fantastic job. Some notes for the defense. The Cowboys forced a takeaway with Ron Bland. Returned an interception, 68 yards for a touchdown, a nice pick 6 for him. The Commanders were held to 205 passing yards and the Cowboys limited the rushers to 2.5 yards per carry. They couldn't get anything going through the air, didn't have a ton of production in the passing game, and they did not beat you on the ground. I want to tell you this. maybe you haven't watched a lot of Commanders game. We talked with Foots last week, like what this team is. They could actually run the ball. I think they were going into this one 3, 4, 5 maybe as far as rushing efficiency on a per play basis. Even when you take out Jaden Daniels, this Commanders team could run the ball. Dallas, I'm going to shout out Kenneth Murray. I'm not even going to wait. Thought Kenneth Murray played his best game of the season, spying Jaden Daniels, keeping him from gashing you 20, 30, 40 yards on big runs, filling his gap. The defensive line did a much better job not getting pushed off the ball. Your defensive tackles were actually eating up space. Kenneth Murray actually had 2 tackles for loss. Going into this one, I'm not even sure that a Cowboys linebacker had 1 tackle for loss, much less for Kenneth Murray to get 2, so shout out to him. Holding that team to 2.5 yards per carry with Cliff Kingsbury, who's a guy that's known and done a good job of helping the Commanders run the ball really efficiently. They do some different things, change up their looks. They can confuse linebackers and guys. I thought he was phenomenal, the defensive line as well. And, just being able to force punts and getting the turnovers and getting off the field in third down helps so much. Once again, it goes back to you don't have to be great. You just got to be average. That was an average performance by the defense, and that's great. And people are going to point, and I know we might have some comments in the comments section this time. I know the Washington Commanders were missing their top 3 wide receivers. Okay, they were missing them. You can say that and say, oh, well, it would have been a completely different game. The defense gave up 22 points, right? The Cowboys scored 44 points. The Commanders would have had to have had 45 points, let's say, to beat this Dallas team. We think that Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel account for 20 points or 10 each. I don't really think so. Based on how Dallas was playing defense yesterday, there weren't receivers running wide open. Jaden Daniels wasn't making the throws that he needed to. I know there was some pressure with him inside the pocket, making him roll out. Kenneth Murray was doing a good job once again of getting downhill, getting after him, not letting him make easy throws. I believe the Cowboys had a couple batted balls at the line of scrimmage, maybe just one. Maybe it was Clowney, who played really exceptional yesterday as well. Easily his best game as a Cowboy. This unit was a lot more than just bend but don't break, or bend and then they usually did break. They actually made some big plays. You had the pick 6. They held Washington's offense in check, which they should have. Going into this one, I didn't care that they were missing their top 3 wide receivers. I was saying to myself, it doesn't matter. Dallas has given up so many big explosive plays. Washington can run the ball. For them not to let that happen is a positive sign. You can be excited about it this week. Last week, the run defense gave up 183 to Rico Dowdle. Don't put that into the back of your mind. Don't just forget about that, because that could end up being who they are down the stretch. But to see a little flash of hope, even if it is little, stopping the Commanders' run game, not letting them bully you up front, being phenomenal in yesterday's game, slowing down Jaden Daniels. Washington was a run-heavy team. They were a good run-first. Jaden Daniels is obviously had the big rookie year. Washington hasn't been as good this year, but I'm going to remind you guys, Dallas beat them 44-22. If they would have won a 29-30 game or a 27-28 game, okay, I'd say, wow, you got really close with a team that was missing their top 3 wide receivers and doesn't have a good defense. They blew them out 44-22. Jaden Daniels carried the ball 8 times, had just 35 yards. Credit a lot to Kenneth Murray once again, 4.4 yards per carry. He did have the touchdown run. And Dallas did bend here and there on some drives. But I want to remind everyone, by the time that Jaden Daniels went out, the sack was a fumble, so Dallas went down and scored right after that, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But Jaden Daniels goes out of the game. The game was already starting to flip to Dallas's side. And I want to remind you guys, too, that Washington has won some games with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Mariota did have 2 carries for 34 yards, but they also didn't game plan for him. A new quarterback comes in, and you're not expecting him to run the ball like he's Jaden Daniels, right? They don't plan for Mariota, so it kind of threw some things in the mix, end up getting the pick six. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, or Bill Merritt, I loved him coming out of college, coming out of Arizona. He was at the East-West Shrine Bowl. A phenomenal player. I like him a lot. Dallas held him to 33 yards on 13 carries, 2.5 yards per carry. He was pretty much a non-factor in this game. And before we end this video, I'm going to go ahead and apologize right now, right? This apology lasts until next Sunday against the Denver Broncos. But I'm going to apologize to Matt Eberflus. And is apologize even the right word? Like, I think so, because I said that he would never change. Don't expect him to change. These guys are set in their ways. So sure, I'm sorry, Matt Eberflus. I was unaware that you were going to make the changes that you did to this defense, because they were actually really impressive. They were changing up their looks up front. I even saw a play where James Houston dropped back in coverage on an underneath route. He drops back, and I'm like, whoa, what are we doing here? Like, you're not just rushing 4 and playing 7 in coverage, in zone coverage, and just letting the quarterback pick you apart over the middle of the field? No. They were changing it up, and there were some really interesting numbers for this game. Now, Dallas did run zone on 52.5% of Jaden Daniels' dropbacks. On those, Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota were 11 for 17 for 162 yards. He had 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a 90.8 passer rating, and 9.5 yards per attempt, and completed 64.7% of their passes. They just got 1 sack in zone coverage. In man coverage, the percentage of dropbacks was 47.5. The quarterbacks completed 5 of 15 passes, 33%, 57 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, with a 45.7 passer rating, 3.8 yards per attempt, and a completion percentage, obviously 5 out of 15, is 33.3%, but 3 sacks. They were much, much better in zone coverage. In man coverage, excuse me. We've seen this unit run 90 to 95, even sometimes in the 98% zone coverage throughout games. This one, they switched it up. 47.5% is a huge swing based on what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. So for Matt Eberflus to finally switch it up, use variety, mixing and matching his coverages, doing some different things on the back end, even if you don't have the players. Like, Trayvon Diggs has apparently been begging for man coverage. He's not out there. You have Bridges out there, someone that you claimed off waivers before week 1. You run man coverage, and the quarterbacks complete 33% of their passes for 50 yards. 15 passes total for 57 yards. That is insane, insane production. But Matt Eberflus, he had a game plan coming in. He understood what he needed to do to slow down Washington with stopping the running quarterback, loading the box, stopping the run, and then running man coverage and zone coverage, mixing and matching those on the back end to confuse Jaden Daniels, and getting out of there with a win, getting the stops on 3rd down, doing different things. I'm going to go back and watch the film today. For some reason, NFL Pro has been behind on this stuff, so I can't watch the film before I get on here and make these videos. So this is all off the top of the dome from the TV copy. But based on what I saw and based on the numbers alone, 50 or 47% is a huge jump from 5 to 10% that we've seen in the past, and it just hasn't worked. Zone coverage really didn't work against Washington. When they did run it, Washington still completed 11 of 17 for quite a few yards and had the 1 touchdown against it. Did have the 1 interception as well, but Marcus Mariota, that was just funny. He just threw it across like, that looked like a vintage Deron Bland 2023. So shout out to him. Coming in with a plan, something different. These coordinators, and I don't think people realize this about NFL coaches, and this is even you guys in your daily lives, people in general. We do things that we're comfortable with, and when things aren't going right, you tend to fall back on what you're comfortable with. Same thing for coaches, same thing for players. Like, When things aren't going right, you just double down on what you're doing because you feel comfortable in doing that. And that kind of felt like what Eberflus was doing. Like, oh yeah, we're going to figure it out. Guys are confused. I don't know if you guys noticed, but yesterday there wasn't nearly as many blown coverages, right? Guys not running completely free 40 yards downfield, and then all the corners and the defensive backs looking at each other like, who was that? Who was supposed to be right there? There was a lot more. I would rather see a player get beat. Like yesterday, I think it was Marquise Bell. I would rather see him get beat on a route than two guys confused about who is supposed to be where and allowing a 40-yard pass down the field. I would rather your players get beat because you're not good enough personnel-wise than give offenses freebie after freebie after freebie. They still allowed a couple of explosive plays in this game, but like I said, that one was against Marquise Bell. I think Chris Moore hit one for like 50 yards. Another receiver had one for 45 yards, but it wasn't nearly as much of confused, dejected players on the back end. It seemed like everybody bought into what they were going to do. I don't know if I should credit Eberflus as much, or is this a Brian Schottenheimer thing? Like, we are going to change this up. I'm the head coach. Change it up. I want to see you do this, this, and this. They did it, and I really hope this isn't one of those, well, look, guys, we did it. All right, we're going to go back to what we were doing beforehand, because obviously it's not working. They need to stick with the plan that they had against the Commanders, and I think with that offense, with how good the offense and those playmakers, and then the defensive side of the ball actually showing a little bit of life getting after the quarterback, if they can continue to play like this, and it's a big, big if. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the defense is completely back, we're good, because I don't think that's the case. There's going to be ups and downs throughout the year, but we got to really hope in December and early January that they really start putting it together, and the version of this team is the one that they maybe take into the back half of the season and eventually into the playoffs. But that game was a ton of fun. I want you guys to go down to the comment here on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast, head over to the Landry Hat on YouTube. That way I can see your guys' comments, and you can leave your own thoughts and opinions. What did you think about the game? And when Commanders fans tell you it was because they didn't have their top 3 wide receivers, you tell them the Cowboys didn't beat the Commanders. They destroyed them. It was a blowout. Debo and Terry McLaurin, who hasn't really even played this year, he's played in like 3 games, they don't make up 22 points. Cowboys dominated. What a fun game. Glad I got to get on here and talk to you guys about it. Once again, thank you to FanSided for having me, the Landry Hat podcast for trusting me to make their content here on YouTube. I'm having a ton of fun on the channel, and like I said, we're going to be back later this week talking Cowboys football with Foots and a special guest. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all. And guess what? That's a Cowboys win. Bye.